time and space in the city. In the street funk on Mac, the smell of the junking junk of the human mind. Ground Zero television heroes, Bailout Cruise, and death in my pen. Flag waving thunder, Babylon slumber. In time and space city, working the money pimp computer slave. New mind stomp of circumstance and pomp. And death is video glass and corporate rap. Baggy head winning superstars on deep ribbing trips of ego. And time and space of the city crawls from my tongue like Friday night dressed in hero chic drag. As a chiseled beat of soul and sleep, conch fried sweet. In labor's price jail, in prison perpetrating schemes and doo-doo dreams of beauty. In time and space in Detroit is their mega mind. Backspace is ground zero. Greyhound escapes. And fake shake depth and illusory wealth. And the HMO is dope, smoke, taupe, factory hope. Stereo blues in Center City. And the wicked are celebrated. Resuscitated shells watch we die in the living lifetime. A space change of funky, junky shifts. And we blow rips of walls and winners and movie renters. For miles in the sky and the sweet flag, goodbye. And we become the gun of time and space. And neon freaks in the deep fix of channel hip. We are again exploded and eroded youth decay. And money won't speak. And time won't creep. We fall into the deep sleep of yes. An affirmation of impotent masturbation. Looking for the good in Ken Rally time. And we space in the limits of man. And think of cesspool Sundays. We only see the paper heads, paper worlds, the DNA. The space won't speak and time won't creep. And we scream at the glitter of time. Paraded as life. Real as asphalt. Real as industry. Real as death. Two-legged money machine and the speak of doom. Pimped out cartoon war zones between the mind of God and plastic knives. And the rope genius of man. Spitting techno plans. The secret ritual futures of slave work and flesh. And the hype of sex, and the hype of speed, proto-cerebral greed. And the time and space in Spirit City is in the gate of the mouth and hustled bouts. And her head is only a rack for skin, City Hall Mall, only a hat of the freed to see seeds of the common mind. And penny witches of cool, and master fronts of liquid games in the street of color. And dreams that break all speed rhythms of perpetuated nows. And time is the devil and space is never level. As the media limits the real. Sugar-coated pills of glitter and money won't speak. And time won't creep. Insane boogie brain, lame drain of blood on channel hip. The pimp of nasty trips of time and space in the city.
Thank you so much for bringing that video forward. Thank you for all the technical help and support that you're giving today. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone, to Horizons in Poetry 2023, which is made possible by the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation. This opening and closing video we just watched was created by Ascended Visions and features Ron Allen's recording Proto Cool from his spoken word CD, Painted Mind Code. Horizons in Poetry was founded by Ron Allen, Wardell Montgomery, and John Mason in 1982 in the cast Corridor. This monthly open mic series ran for over 2 decades, hosted alternatively by Ron Allen, Sharon Smith Knight, and Trinidad Sanchez. I'm Owolabi, one of your hosts for tonight.
And my name is John Jackery. I am co-hosting for this month's Horizons in Poetry. I'm part of the Ron Allen Project, which is a multimedia exhibit reflecting the work and art of poet, playwright, sobriety mentor, and Dharma priest, Ron Bodhidharma Allen, during the years he resided in Detroit's Cass Corridor. This exhibit will go up next month at Detroit's Hannan Center and Kayrod Gallery on Woodward. The grant team who wrote the final submission for the Night's Art Challenge are Carla Harriman, Ruby Woods, Jim Perkison, Richard Reeves, and myself. With that, we didn't talk about this before. Owolabi. I can go, or if you'd like to go.
Would you like to go?
Sure, I'll go. Thank you.
I'll go second.
So one of the things about working on the Ron Allen project is I've been revisiting a lot of his texts and thinking a lot about conversations that we've had over the years. And I remember one time I recorded Griot Galaxy and Roy Brooks from the jazz festivals in like the mid 80s. And this is maybe 10 or 12 years later, and gave him a copy. And we ended up in this amazing conversation about sound and lyric and rhythm. And he gave me a copy of Farouk's book, Toward a Rational Aesthetic. And I still I've had a very hard time reading the book from start to finish. I've done it, but I don't think I comprehended it. But there was a couple of things that just really, really struck me. And so I'm going to read a short passage from that. Imagine, if you will, a painting of a landscape at sunset, a painting wherein the composition and draftsmanship are very well done. The painter's command of perspective, brushstroke, the other components necessary for the construction of an excellent representation of that sensitive and delicate transition from a brilliant and often harsh daylight to a fear-laden dark of evening. Imagine this veritable masterpiece that approaches the representational precision of a photograph, yet there is one glaring flaw in the rendering, and that is that the technology of the artist's time zone will only allow the painter to use the 3 primary colors in the attempt to capture the subtleties of the sunset. Now imagine the same excellent rendering, except that when the artist prepares to apply color to complete the image of the declining sun and all of the feelings that it can evoke, the then current technology can only allow the use of primary and secondary colors. This, the restriction to the primary and at best secondary tone colors, is the artistic burden of the diatonic, tonic-centered musician, who can only avail themselves of a tonic palette that offers 7, or, at the risk of being considered a subjective atonalist, 12 colors. Within this limited spectrum, there is no gradation, no nuance, and only the crudest attempt at inflection. And the footnote is, in Hindu cosmogony, the unstruck sound is that sound that can exist inside one's head without being generated at any external point. In other words, the aural imagination. And I think part of what Ron was trying to get at least through the plays, and which is where I, had the most interaction with him, it was very much about, like I say, the sound for him. and less about and trying to use the sound as completely to render an emotion and an idea on stage. And he did that in his plays as well, or I'm sorry, in his poetry as well. But in one of his plays, Squatting in the Circle of the Elder Mind, he did kind of get at that about frequency and sound as being key. So this is spoken by Tyree Guyton. Let me tell you about myself and tell you about yourselves. I am an illusion, a signal, a wave of energy, a frequency, maybe an intellect unknown to you. I create not through the form of normal art, but through what is in my knowing self. That is what I am. I am not a black man. I am not a color. I am all the history you bring to this moment, and it is false. It is your conditioned mind perceiving me through what you have been taught to think is real. Therefore, I am attempting to create a miracle. You knowing me through this lens of theater, or giving you a feeling of myself. I am an impulse in space and time seeking freedom, and that is who you are. You are a possible reality that knows me in maybe 100 type of ways. You are a canvas seeking paint, a grape looking to be wine in this black room, an embryo looking for the first breath. And the last thing I want to read, and this goes back to thinking about who were the people, and particularly at Horizons in Poetry, who specifically their sound really captured my imagination. And I was going through, again, looking for different people from around the same time. And I found a copy of the Wayne Literary Review from 2004. And one of the people who had such a beautiful, caressing voice, but could also use it in ways that always just startled me when she would read, and that was Vivi Francis. And in this anthology, or in this review, she has a piece called A Singular Dispersion in Franklin, Tennessee. And it's in reference to, I don't know what whether this is a true story, but it is around the Civil War. 4 generals in Tennessee breakfast over maps, coffee, and wagers. Their plates are kept piled by a one-named slave, small and serving quiet as a grass snake. She has been convinced the cannibals are on their way south. She has seen signs of disaster, bulls mating out of season, blood in the churn, dense hordes of buzzards in the tall stick needles. She prepares meals as best she can, given the conditions. Her kerchief is unstarched but straight with honor. To honor the rebel endeavor. She manages an extra glaze on the ham. For you, we risk our lives, her master exclaims. Do you believe they will free you? Who bought you that good frock? Who keeps your children here with you? Without being asked, she positions the bacon, the spoons, the gravy, grits, and pone, replaces the soiled pewter, cuts new tomatoes, talcs her forehead in the kitchen, maintains a freshness difficult in the climb. Her apron is blue, the color of clean. Her mother taught her this. It is all she remembers of her. A dry blue head wrapping. The dining room is cool despite the season, away from the hot kitchen with its walls of pitching brick. No one goes in but her, and she does the work of six, her duty, her part. He reminded her just that morning, patting her thigh above the butcher's block as he said her name. She has come to pine for the sound of him calling her by name. He says, with a lilt, as if calling a favored horse that wins all its races. He has come to be the voice of her dead mother, of her lost father, the sound that will not go. He moves his hand across the maps. She follows them, expecting an order. It comes. She goes back to Griddlemore cakes. They flap up and over the way his young'uns jump up and down on the beds as she watches their hair move over the shoulders like creek water over stones. He calls her again, insistent and still famished, wanting Chicory to wash it all down while he and the other generals plan and make decisions. She reaches over his arm to pour when a brick with the force of an army thrusts him into her bosom. Her kerchief embeds in the ceiling. His scream locks in the moment. The explosion leaves the others to die alone, without the shattering warmth of a woman. Each man becoming a singular dispersion of limb and whatever he was eating. And with that, I will turn it over to Owolabi.
Thank you so much, John. Thank you for sharing, Ron and Vivi. Thank you for sharing this moment. Today I had an encouraging talk with Ruby, who encouraged me to go into some storytelling. And this morning, my cat passed away, and this piece that I wrote earlier this year is on my mind. So feel free to lay back, buckle up, and I'll share this story with you all, if that's all right. Another village, this one my own. My son lights up when he's with his dogs, Loki and Sylvie. He immediately loved his stepfather's cats, Shadow and Patchwork. Leroy was so disappointed to find out I'm not allowed to have dogs in my home, so he told me to get a cat. I took his advice. My porch has become a tourist attraction for the neighborhood's feral, feline traveling village. A few cats sleep on the chairs on my front porch when I'm not around. Green plastic lawn chair, folding REI camping chair, collapsible canvas chair that is often covered by leaves. Sleeves and Crazy Pete sometimes cuddle together. They're black and white kittens with their own distinct patterns, siblings of the litter with two very different personalities. Sleeves is the bolder of the two. He wants affection. He dashes inside the house before the security door closes if I take a second too long, if my hands are full with grocery bags, for example. When he gets inside, he just purrs and purrs like an ecstatic maniac. My girlfriend Bridget got some flea and tick medicine for him, his brother, and their mom, Shadow. Those three visit me most often. I haven't seen Shadow in a few weeks. There are a couple all-black cats like her that we see on the block, but she is the only one who has a collar. She was the first cat to come across the street and make home on my porch, at first by herself. It was only in hindsight that we noticed her belly swollen. I remember when she would nurse Sleeves, Pete, and a few other tiny kittens on our porch. They grow up so fast. I was excited to show Leroy our new cats, to encourage him to visit more. See, I got cats like you wanted. I know they're outdoor cats, but they're cool, right? Do you want to feed them? Nah, I'm good, Dad. Still, he slumps in the canvas chair on the porch, watching Troll Hunter or Lego cartoons on his phone with the cats underneath him. Leroy recently cut his locks off and switched his hair color from green to brown. The following week, he hid his hair underneath his Detroit Red Wings cap, not yet ready to show anyone the transformation he had undertaken. 2 or 3 more cats meander over from across the street. Sometimes they just sit by my gate and look up at us on the porch. Other times, the porch is stacked with 7 or 8 cats and kittens. I live on the east side of Detroit, renting the ground floor of a 2-family flat. Here, the houses are close together. Only half have driveways, so many of us park on the street. The neighbors are also close together. Leah, who lives upstairs and teaches at Leroy's former school, and Mo, who provides health resources to queer teenagers, look out for me when I go on vacation or when surgery leaves me laid up for a period of time. Chucky lives across the street. He's trying to train Baby to be a guard dog. That fool is just too damn friendly. Whenever Bridget passes by walking her beagle Louise, she checks to make sure that Baby's outdoor water bowl is full. Sometimes Chucky sees me making ancestral offerings in front of my house. "Please pray for me, brother," he shouts. "You know it. Have a blessed day," I yell in return from the lot next to my house where chicory, clover, and dandelions roam the grassy mounds that have buried whatever home used to sit there long before my time. "I'll be praying for you." Chucky, also known as the Flower Man, lugs his canisters of painted roses onto his four-wheeler to circle the neighborhood for his evening hustle. We aren't the only two shouting greetings and salutations across the street. Every neighbor in this hood has 1 or 2 people that they check up on, say what's up to, or send good energy to as we leave our cars or watch the street from our porches. In addition to the neighbors passing blessings back and forth across our one-way street, an extended family of cats and kittens roam the entire block. Bridget named Sleeves because 3 of his legs are all white. His 4th leg, his front right, is all black, like he's wearing a basketball athletic sleeve. He is a baller, a freaking all-star cat. His swagger is out of this world. I asked Leroy what he wanted to name Sleeves' feline partner in crime. Without missing a beat, he said, Crazy Pete. Pete definitely has younger brother vibes. He has a little black goatee and black patches on 2 of his legs. He loves being around us, hanging out on the porch, but human beings petting him? That's a little too much. Just give up the meow mix and keep your distance. He looks up to his adventurous brother. Whenever Sleeve dashes in the house, Pete comes right up to the security door to keep watch and look after his bro. No funny business, all right, 2-leggeds? I keep the second door open so the cats can check in on each other if they want to. If we hold the door open, Crazy Pete never wants to enter, no matter how much Sleeves purrs and rolls around in kitty ecstasy inside. I'm good, guys. I'm just gonna stay out here and keep my freedom. That's a good bro. Always keeping an eye out for his fam. Humans are shady nowadays. You never know what they'll do. When I turn into the driveway for the evening, 3 or 4 cats saunter up behind my parked car waiting for me to get out. On the east side of Detroit, hell, anywhere in the city, you don't just roll up on people like that. If I didn't know them, I think they were trying to start trouble. No, the kittens are just trying to surround me with cuteness and get some salmon pate from me. You guessed it. Usually they're led by Sleeves. What's good, my nigga? What you been doing? The house next door to Chucky's has a wooden wheelchair ramp that zigs and zags up to the front porch. All the people living in both houses across the street are members of the same residential program. They know each other. No children live in either one, just a smattering of adults who casually walk between the two houses, or they park in one driveway and walk over to the other house. When I first moved here, all the cats lived under the ramp. Sometimes they stay under the four-wheeler when Chucky covered it up on his front lawn. Mr. Towns lives 2 doors over from Chucky and Baby. A warm and soft-spoken man, he puts out a buffet of dry cat food for the gang in his garage. His grass is always neatly mowed and edged. "How are you doing, young man?" he calls over as he waters his row of 7 yellow tulip bushes in front of his porch. On her walk with Louise across the neighborhood, Bridget met a couple of neighbors from the next street over. They said the cats also cut through the alley to hang out on their block. They put out food from time to time and have given them flea and tick medicine as well. The cats remind me of a time when I had an innocent freedom to move, being young in the 80s and 90s on the west side of Detroit. I must have been about the same age Leroy is now, cutting through the alley to play basketball on the next block over, zigzagging across 3 yards, playing front lawn football, touch on the sidewalk, tackle on the grass, asking for permission, then dashing in or out of the 3 or 4 houses that have Nintendo or Sega Genesis home game systems, hitting a home run into the neighbor's yard, then debating if we should hop the fence or walk the sidewalks the long way around to their backyard. We'd pack in the car and drive across the city to visit family on holidays. I learned how to hold space watching my grandmothers on holidays. They each had their own style. When visiting my mother's mother, Grandma, we'd all sit down around the dinner table on holidays. Granddad would lead us in prayers before we ate. Holidays were ever flowing at Granny's East Side house, on the contrary. People would come and go. My granny had 56 grandchildren, and over 100 great-grandchildren, so you never knew who would stop by. I grew up on the west side, but experienced deep family on the east side. My Aunt Jean lived upstairs from her mother in the 2-family flat. Aunt Carol across the street, Uncle James, nicknamed 44, and Uncle Bill stayed at Granny's house from time to time. Granny and them lived only a mile from where I currently live. Everyone I just mentioned by name has made their transition. Some spiritual teachers say to observe closely the animals that cross your path. When I'm in the presence of this vibrant family of Detroit cats, I feel messages crisscross their way to me from the ancestral realm. Whenever I see the cats saunter back and forth across the street like the neighborhood belongs to them, I'm back in Granny's living room, sitting on the couch, covered with clear plastic. I'm on the porch with Lee and Shard and Rico and Terry, feeling the teeth-rattling vibrations of bass from the subwoofers in my older cousins' cars. We're walking back and forth to make a plate at one house and eat it across the street at another. I'm on the couch with a Stephen King book, listening to my aunts laugh and cuss with their mother, talking shit to whoever is dressed up to go out for the evening. Holidays spill out to the street and the sidewalks, a love that cannot be contained within a single building. I'm no longer the quiet nerd looking up to everyone around me for how they laughed, for how they cussed so generously, for how they drank or shot dice, for how they prayed out loud or held secrets for lifetimes like a second skin. When I go to family holidays now, we cousins have gray in our beards and some sprouting from our heads. They offer me a joint. It's legal now. I take it or I don't. After the funerals, I think about my responsibilities at home. We meet each other as men and women who have shouldered our own burdens. And that's what I was in the midst of back then, just too young to see it. The choreography of family. These holidays were our church that anointed the migrations from Mississippi to Chicago and Detroit. These prayers before meals, our moral struggle, what to do when you're well fed and have a homeless sibling. These check-ins and inquiries are more than formality. If something is wrong with the children or if their parents are struggling, we may be taking them in to our own homes for days, weeks, or months. These extravagances of color and sound we flaunt on our days off are the shadow side of the uniform self we have to be when we're on the clock. The macaroni and cheese, baked chicken, fried chicken, dressing with chicken, collard greens, roast duck, pasta salad, green beans, Kool-Aid, candied yam, the hot sauce, the buttered biscuit, pound cake, coconut cake, red velvet cake. Time with family tastes sweeter when you know the tears that were stirred into the pot. Sometimes they hand you the spoon and it's your turn to cry and to feed others. And now Leroy watches Mama Trunks grab a switch and swing with ridiculous sound effects, laughing at the YouTube, never having to feel it on his own backside. And now Leroy runs across the street to play basketball or rides his scooter to get his own McDonald's. And now my son Leroy is a member of this village today that stretches back years and covers miles and miles. And maybe he'll feed the cats and maybe he won't, but we'll see to it that they all eat good. Whenever they come around, whether that's co-parenting visitation, funerals and holidays, or strutting across the street for some love. Thank you for choosing me. Rest in peace, sleeves. Thank you, Horizons in Poetry.
Yeah, no, that was beautiful, beautiful piece, Owolabi. Beautiful.
Thank you so much. What's next?
Okay. We are going to have people who want to present as part of open mic. You can go over to click on the chat and put your name down that you want to be considered for open mic. And we'll keep a list going during Leslie's reading. Between now and then and the end of the okay, so yes, if you could put your name down in the chat between now and when Leslie is finished reading.
A little bit more about the poetry season, the poetry series. Last year in 2022, we lifted up Broadside Lotus Press by presenting 3 recipients of the prestigious Naomi Long Magic Poetry Award: Dr. Sandra Staten Taiwo, Jacquees Armstrong, and Malika Favorite. We also featured 2 Horizons in Poetry veterans, Samaj Brown and Detroit Aether Blue. In this year, 2023, we are featuring in this series writers who were published in Hipology, Horizons in Poetry, the 1990 anthology of poets edited by Ron Allen and Stella Cruz, which was published by Broadside Press.
Leslie Reese is a poet, writer, and interdisciplinary arts educator. She is based in Chicago and Detroit and has an MA in interdisciplinary arts from Columbia College. Leslie has been a reading mentor for kindergartners, a poetry instructor for teens, and a literacy coach facilitating reading and writing workshops for adult learners. She is the founder of Folklore and Literacy, which uses books, visual art, music, movement, and performance as gateways to literacy, discovery, and self-expression. In addition to authoring the poetry collections Upside Down Tapestry, Mosaic History, and Urban Junkstar, Leslie has composed and performed original poetries for projects by bassist Marion Hayden and violinist Regina Carter. Currently, she is a Chicago Poetry Center poet in residence in Chicago public elementary schools, a role that she first practiced with Inside Out Literary Arts Project and the Broadside Press Poet in Residence program in Detroit. So please welcome Ms. Leslie Reese.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Olawabi. I'm so sorry about Sleeve. I think, excuse me, I thought your storytelling was very beautiful. And I kind of have a little lump in my chest from listening. So hopefully I won't bust out in tears on something that's not teary. Or maybe I will. I'm feeling like an old head. It's really funny. I just listening to when Horizons in Poetry started, 1982. That would be right about the time when I was following, I was following poets and people in the literary and cultural and activist community in Detroit, following them around like, let me in your club. I want to do what you're doing. And the first time that I read for Horizons in Poetry, I think was 1983. And I read with Farouk Zibay and Calvin Murray. I think that's right. Unfortunately, I'm not home and I wasn't able to put my hand on some visual aids that I thought would be fun to present when I initially was thinking about this reading. Farouk, that quote, "the unstruck sound, oral imagination." And I guess the other quote from Tyree, "a grape looking to be wine." Olawabi's poem story says, sometimes they hand you the spoon and it's your turn to cry. Anyway, very beautiful. Bringing back memories. And so I'll make sure to read lots of old stuff for you. Actually, the funny thing is I love encouraging young people to write poetry. And a lot of the poems that I write these days, they just seem so internal and personal to me. I feel like these might not be interesting for other people, but I had to locate some. And then also, I guess a lot of some of these poems are kind of prosy. When our family started, when our family and me, when our family started losing people, when I was beginning to lose friends, I found myself just always trying to write things that are kind of like snapshots to, with people, with folks. But anyhow, let me start with something. I'm going to start with something called The Face of Our Past. And The Face of Our Past is the title of like a documentary photography book, specifically centering Black women. And I had this before I packed up my things to move. I had a shelf in my apartment with the book, The Face of Our Past, and I had, some of my ancestors, my grandmother's pictures and my mother's. And so that's where the title of this comes from. One night, a framed photo of my father's mother as a young woman falls off the shelf. So does a framed photo of my mother, one of my favorites because she looks sunny and wears a necklace of cowries. And there's a blue sky, some clouds, and one of the Great Lakes behind her. I picked their faces up off the floor. A small gesture that pulls on my feelings. My world was formed inside the meat of their hands, unshed tears at the backs of their throats. In my mouth, their names taste like a cabinet of spices, condiments, and dry goods. In my mouth, their names climb like vines. First one mother body, then another mother body, and another. Carriers of fluids and air and geographies and genetic properties and dreams and embraces and laundry. Seasons of agricultural tools and needle and thread and literacy and cockpits and men. So between creation and them, I inherited blood and skin and kidneys and toenails and taste buds, a way of standing or walking or signifying or laughing and judging and crying and raging. Even my silence is theirs. I remember my grandmother Essie and her hand-sewn quilts, her modest handwriting, the jars of fig preserves she made that I shared with my classmates my first year of college in Atlanta. We ate so much toast until our spoons clinked music at the bottom of the mason jars. For 20 years or more, I was sure strawberries, not figs. A sister here, a cousin there has her hairline or her smile or her bunions. Every time I see a tuft of monkey grass, I think of her front yard on Booth Street in Prattville. Also, elephant ears. Her and Daddy standing together, pointing at what was growing. Then Daddy kneeling to feel the soil, pull out weeds. That was their common language. The first time I ever cried to see a casket lowered into the ground, it was at her funeral. Uncle Hop let me cry in his chest. My mother has taken up residence in my body. Sometimes I feel inside the way she looked to me on the outside. If I hold my nose haughty or eat my food with a certain relish, slurp my coffee, or yell at someone who doesn't mean it too hard, I feel ashamed afterward. Thank God she was generous enough with her hugs. So sometimes now, when I feel the need for her comfort, I can remember just what her embrace felt like, even the damp of her sweat, how she loved to wear scented cream. I once owned a treasure chest of ire that I kept polished, hinges oiled, whenever our disagreements were bitter. I don't know where it is now. My patience with her near the end, when all I knew was denial and disbelief, even that day, 4 of us holding hands in the nest of her hospital bed. Reverend Argentina asked me to speak a prayer for my mother. I was afraid to, but I did. So with that, then I will now share something that's sort of new. It's called Pinsel, Pinsl. So, when I'm working with second graders, I actually have a collection of their creative spelling. I love it so much. It's so poignant. But anyway, Pinsl. So this is a poem about pencil when you're young like that. Portal to question mark. My thought ginger snap innocent. A sentence I made on my own out of sound. On my way to asking, The snap of lead buckles beneath the crush to know new awe. My ears hear bells. I'd like to read a piece called Naomi. This is about a woman who I used to see. My mother taught me how to ride the Woodward bus when I was 8. And so Woodward is still like I'm like a homing pigeon to Woodward. But anyway, I used to see this woman in the Wayne State Cass Corridor area. And anyway, this is a true incident. And it took place actually at Union Street, I think. Took place at Union Street back when it was jamming. And I don't know if any of you who remember that in the front for a while there was a spread on the wall when you came in the door of Union Street, and Ron's picture was up there, and different poets. I guess that was one of the many restaurants where Horizons and Poetry readings happened. I remember them happening at Cobb's Corner. I remember them happening at Alexander's. In fact, I think when Ron was cooking at Alexander's, I was waiting tables at the traffic jam. And I used to finish my lunch shift and go to Alexander's and play Pac-Man and drink a beer. This was around when Pac-Man first first started. Okay, so anyway, blah, blah, blah. But this is called Naomi. A number of years ago, I used to stop at a bar after work some nights. I imagined myself to be rather experienced and writerly. And after paying for my drink with a $10 or $20 bill, would place the remaining money on the bar underneath my cigarette case and lighter while sipping, blowing smoke through my nose, writing intently in my journal about the day's events and people I'd encountered. This particular afternoon, I was having the blues. And now here, I'll insert a new poem. Sometimes I grovel at the barrel's bottom in bitterness. Dirty rag thoughts wash my face. A cream of nasty words gushes from the tube of toothpaste I use to reiterate the suds of disappointment in my mouth. I eat a bowl of unlucky charms for breakfast. A woman came in and situated herself next to me and my accessories at the bar. A woman came in and situated herself next to me and my ancestors at the bar. I could sense that she was going to try and engage me, and I thought, I'm not in the mood today, God. So I see that you're writing, she said. I nodded my head without looking up to make eye contact. I know a bit about writing myself. Hey, bartender. She held her hand up like a student waiting to be acknowledged in a classroom. I inspected her looks closely and saw that the texture of her brown hair was like a worn knit sweater. It was short, parted on the side, and combed behind her ears without any body or curl. Her t-shirt was shapeless, the fabric faded. She was wearing a nondescript pair of slacks with white sneakers. The bartender was in the midst of pouring some freshly shaken liquids between two chilled glasses. Bartender! Just a minute. Damn, she said under her breath. So what are you writing? Her focus returned to me, And now I looked and saw that she was patting herself around her hips as though she'd misplaced something. I'm writing in my journal, I said, hoping my voice sounded unfriendly. The bartender showed up wearing a scowl. What took you so long, man? I'm thirsty. Can I get you something? Well, yeah, I'm sitting at the bar, ain't I? The tension between them built, then dissipated while they swapped stares. Give me a Budweiser. She acted as if the bartender should have known her drink. The draft beers were at the other end of the bar, and so he left. The woman had located a soft coin purse inside one of her hip pockets, and now she emptied its contents onto the surface of the bar. Now, where were we? She said, turning back to me. I noticed then that while her skin, the color of brown mustard, lacked luster, her eyes had a brightness to them. The corners around her mouth seemed ready for a laugh. Oh, I remember now. We were talking about poetry. The bartender placed a glass of beer down in front of her, the sound of it bumping against the bare surface of the bar. Don't I get a napkin or something? After the bartender shoved a cocktail napkin in her direction, she told him, don't worry, I brought my Be Cool pills. Then she turned to me and said, if he's trying to make me feel unwelcome, he's doing a good job of it. We both laughed. I had to stop pretending that my journal was more interesting than she was, but I held on to my pen anyway. Pleased, she gulped from her beer and then sighed. The music, the sounds of other patrons, conversations, the bell the chefs rang in the window when food was ready, and the bartender's sounds of clanking glasses and drink pours all faded into the background while I mentally rewound and replayed her expression, be cool pills, be cool pills. I had never heard it before and wondered if she was referring to real or imagined medications. Have you ever heard of Langston Hughes? She asked. Of course I have. You probably know this one then. And she began. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun, or fester like a sore and then run? Her recitation was dignified, slightly theatrical, and I was aware that I didn't know the poem Harlem by heart as she did. The only thing I could remember was something about the raisin becoming like a syrupy sweet. Well, she sighed, maybe it was purely nostalgic, but I wondered if she had wanted me to finish reciting the rest of the poem. She placed her hand on top of my cigarette case and glanced at me with a raised eyebrow. May I? Of course. The case, one my sister had brought me from a trip to India, was hand carved of sandalwood and had a clever way of opening. I flipped it open so she could help herself from one of the 10 holes that kept each cigarette separate from the rest. She took one and then inclined her head ceremoniously so I could light it for her. She inhaled with deep satisfaction. My name is Naomi, by the way. So pleased to make your acquaintance. She stuck her hand out and I shook it, a little outdone, yet amused with myself for having felt superior to her and for enjoying her charisma. My drink was getting low, and so was Naomi's when the bartender came to collect her tab. We became aware of his presence while she was in the midst of regaling me with her knowledge of the Harlem Renaissance. Naomi didn't appreciate having the flow of her talk interrupted. What? The bartender smirked and said, I hope you have enough money to pay for your beer this time. She gave him a look that said, eat dirt, while aloud she said, it's right there. Anybody can see it. He scooped the coins into his hand and with his moist lips slightly opened, counted out the money. You're short 65 cents. His voice broadcast to everyone sitting at the bar. Naomi raised her head high, surveyed everyone who was looking at her. When they stopped looking, she turned to me and, with a flourish, asked, "Will you do the honors?" Will you do the honors? Of course I did. Here's a couple of haiku. So in Chicago, I live near Lake Michigan, and I like to take a walk by there. Morning's peace glitter, wet prayer, welcoming day, sacred lake and sky. Dandelions here appear to litter the bald ground with golden cheer. Red tulips singing, their green necks curved with yearning and sun serenade. Some children can't spell the medicine of their dreams, a lost alphabet. See, where am I on time? Okay.
You're fine on time.
Am I? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. This is a poem. I don't know if any of you are familiar with a sculpture that's at the Detroit Institute of Arts. It's by Richard Hunt. It's called Field Section. And it's a sculpture that he created out of, an automobile fender. And I love that sculpture. I used to look at it. I worked at the DIA for a while too, and I used to just enjoy walking through the gallery and looking at that piece. And then one year, I find myself, I had writing a story poem that has to do with my dad and who worked in Chrysler for 30-something years. And anyway, so this poem is called Field Section. Daddy didn't talk much. He showed affection by handing me a handful of peanuts warm from roasting in the oven. Some women in the family, like Mommy, called folks sweet names: sugar pie, sugar lump, sugar dumpling, honey child, baby cakes. Parents seem like they're born old until photographs of them as children appear. Mommy, who grew up in Detroit and was an only child for 8 years, is posed in a studio wearing her hat at a jaunty angle to accent the plaid in her skirt. When the little black and white photo of Dad is unearthed, he sits with siblings Isaac, the twins Lionel and Yvonne, and their cousin Vivian, whose mother was killed in the same accident that killed our grandfather. Their mule-drawn buggy, no match for the speeding truck that hit them, tumbling bones about on the road, leaving my grandmother injured and shaken for a long time. But this part of the story does not show in the photograph, where Daddy and them sit lined up on the edge of their porch in Lowndes County, Alabama, smiling with the shyness of children unaccustomed to having their picture made. Behind them, a stoic-looking woman who they called Mama Dooley sits in a rocker. Daddy's hunting dog, Jack, sits happily among them. You can practically Feel his moist dog breath panting against your face. These children are wearing clean cotton dresses, frayed dungarees. And though they never told us that they didn't have shoes then, the photo makes me wonder. After they have joined their Uncle Cobb and working on assembly lines in Dodge, Chrysler, Plymouth manufacturing plants in Detroit in the 1960s. Daddy and Uncle Hop, armed with tours of duty in the military and degrees chaperoned by the GI Bill, they are ready for the historical moment instigated by the Dodge Revolutionary Union movement and the League of Revolutionary Black Workers to climb the ranks and earn MBAs, becoming some of the first Black men to manage auto plants in the 1970s. That's when their childhood photo emerges. It seems to elicit the most laughter from those whose memory it does not belong to. Tossed around in an up-south salad, I heard folks signifying on Alabama, stump digger, cotton picking, and country. When Daddy spies our bare feet, he sends us diving under beds, bookcases, and closets for our house slippers. I can afford to buy y'all shoes, you better wear them. Those were the years relatives in Cleveland, Detroit, Chicago, and as far away as California traveled, some by car caravan to Prattville, Alabama, converging on Grandma Essie and Aunt Vaughn and Uncle Mose, who lived next door to her. This was some of our mother country between Detroit and the continent of Africa. Alabama was that foreign place where our mouths stayed juicy from eating fresh peaches and muscadine grapes, where Daddy and his generation were known by exotic nicknames like I See, Honey, Beck, Hop, Short, and Grown, where adults slapped their own faces, demanding that we kiss them on the jaw. It was where our real-life grandfather clock, Papa, sat in a homemade wooden wheelchair all day long ever since his leg was burned in the fireplace. We wondered why the only thing about him that seemed to move were his eyes. It was where people we didn't know leaned forward over their porch railings, waving and shouting, "Hey, y'all must be some more estimate grandchildren." "Yes, ma'am," and "Yes, sir," we shouted back with pride, showing off our home training where it was truly in context. It was the place where one day the daddies and uncles took us kids for a ride. Our mothers and aunties, the eldest folk and the babies were not invited. We rode on cough-dusty roads, loaded into a van on loan to us from Chrysler, little ones sitting in the laps of the bigger ones, since mandatory child seats and seatbelt laws hadn't been invented yet. Busy sharing pieces of candy and pecans, comparing skin tones, playing thumps and slaps while hide and seeking over the middle row of car seat. We barely noticed when the van stopped moving and idled at roadside, simmering down to quiet. We looked out the window, probably hoping to see an ice cream parlor. But there was nothing there but field and sky. And field. The boldest of us asked the question in all of our minds, what we stopping here for? Our daddies and uncles were men of few words, and it took forever before one of them said, "Y'all know what that is?" We looked again for what we had so obviously missed. What we saw was field and sky, and field, field. Uncles and daddies snorted when we asked, What is? We don't see nothing." "That's a cotton field," one of them responded with gravity. "Y'all don't know nothing about that." Then Daddy pulled the gear shift into drive, clatter of gravel kicked up by accelerating tires, sending us on our way.
All right. Thank you very much, Leslie.
Thank you.
I just wanted to break in to remind people that if you want to join the open mic, to please put your name in the chat. We're going to start that in just a few minutes. Ms. Reese, if you might have one more or short one to share with us.
Thank you. I'll read I'll read one from the book Urban Junkstar that Dennis Teichman and Deb King published on Past Tense Press. Brigade of Torn Up Songs. This is a poem that I wrote. I had maybe spent about 8 years in Alabama in the 90s. And then when I returned, I was working through Inside Out, and I was a poet in residence with teenagers in Central High School and Finney High School and Communication and Media Arts High School and some others anyway. So I was, this is a poem that I basically wrote for some of the teenagers. Brigade of Torn Up Songs. Accusatory eyes lynch urban girls and boys if they are too raw, jiggy, and buttercream, stacking tall, saucy sandwiches filled with junky grammar and ghetto lettuce. Boo, bet your crew wanna fix this. Shanique, Devante, Diamond, and Jawan. Y'all kids, you kick like pebbles to the curb. It be their wonderful eyes, like sequins in this terrible night of curse word splendor and broken bell letters scrolling beneath street lamps of neon liquor lightning. Here goes the bootleg remix of hair-splitting virtuosity and the art of verb-spitting verbosity, causing a social atrocity at massive heart attack velocity. A mouth of sidewalk doo-doo stew dipped in blues and black cherry boogaloo, glazing this herb-buttered turntable, you might be inclined to house the language too. Ill chillin' with cognac instead of kegs, swervy, curvy, or straight as pegs. In my city of forgotten dregs, children rock the mic between their legs. Oh, pea-stained mystery, I saw your truth in one syrup eye looking out at me through a busted bathroom stall door in a high school on the shitty side of town, sprouting verbena, verbatim, verbena, verbatim, verbena, verbatim.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much,
you.
Leslie. Okay. I was not, thank you very much, Leslie Reese. It was very much a family storytelling tonight. It was beautiful.
Indeed.
Absolutely beautiful. So I was not keeping track of who was signed up for open mic.
I got it.
Okay.
We have 4 people.
Okay.
We're gonna advise for 5 minutes each. Share a piece. 5 minutes each. Excuse me, I hope I pronounced this right. The first one to sign up, Safongo.
Greetings, Owalabi. I hope I pronounced that right too. My name is Pongo Brother, that was a beautiful poem. That was a beautiful poem you read earlier. I enjoyed that. Leslie, wonderful reading, wonderful poems. Thank you very much. My name is Pongo. I'm from Zimbabwe. We have the most beautiful flag in the world. If you want to debate, find me on Facebook. I currently in Sierra Leone, where I work as the operations director for a youth media organization. But I'm not here about that today. I'm here to share some poetry. I'm going to share two poems. The first poem is I'm 25, but I've seen a lot of traditions disappear in these 20 years that I've been away, 20 or 15 years that I've been away. I've seen a lot of traditions disappear. And this is one tradition I tried to immortalize in this poem titled The Rain Dance. We all sat around the fireplaces, the tongues of the fire seemingly taunting our hungry looking faces. We had not left the room, no, none had the nerve, not until the ritual was over. We sat on the floor, cross-legged, frozen, waiting for the first droplet. The ground smells of thirsty spring had come and gone, but even the trees that hung onto their leaves were grieved to hear them fall to the ground, raising tons of dust that hung above our heads like a friendly ghost come to boast. The rhythm of life could sing to the cries of the bleating goats. We had drank their blood and ate the flesh of their kin in an effort to keep soul glued to skin. The people were quiet, but each whispered in their minds the truth unspeakable. The cross steeple that stood atop the cathedral, seemingly violating the sky, rendered her barren. Gone are the days of the rain dance, when the rainmaker through the orifice of the hot springs in Pinga disappeared for 7 days and came back with basket loads of harvest maize to tell of a bumper harvest, a gift from the gods of the land. If he came with his hands empty like politicians' promise of food security, the tribe knew that the drums had to beat for the people to clap and the gods to dance until the earth cried tears of rain. We were one with the land, most so gods of the rain. So I pray thee tell, which gods to this serve that let ye starve? No blasphemy. Let's have none of that nonsense for the starving child whose father works the fields but the rains don't fall, whose mother gathers the wood but the cat sleeps on the head, whose stomach grumbles the Lord's prayer but all the Lords are deaf here. Shoulders who never carry the unpleasant weight of a scarf teen. As she goes to school, she bends but not a single droplet for her throat to cool. So she learns at school that the globe is getting warm, that Mother Earth never speaks, but she whispers silent cries every time a car turns into a passive smoke up, taking her to cloud 9. But you know what smoke does to lungs, and to create a hole so big the sun will escape the hands of time and burn the soul alive. No rain to cool us down, let alone irrigate the Garden of Eden. Peace, power to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Pongo. Thank you so much for bringing the rain. We have next one of the members of this crew, one of the members of Horizons and Poetry. Up next on the open mic, we have Jim Parkinson.
Thank you, Owolabe, and John, Jackery, and everybody who's here. Amazing recitations tonight. I'm going to share maybe two, but I'll start with one in relationship to my baby, my wife, Filipina, that I met in 2001, and a poem, me trying to get up to speed on U.S.-Filipino colonial relations, was part of the romance of our early meeting, and ever since I do poems for her on her birthday and Christmas and Valentine's Day and anniversaries. This is one from her birthday back in 2014. It's called Walking on Water Together. New twists in the trail now, soft foot on the rolling path, a world away, all the hooray, a digit in my eye, but I see like a flea on the body of a wind cavorting cormorant. Trans-Pacific current of spirit grinning vision across the waves, your colors ablaze, your voice crazing the concentrating congregants of a new mode of mission. Tradition dug deep behind the easy revision on collision with the now of capitalized dreams of fear. You, a seer, signal, voluptuous as a muscle of salmon, eating, lazy thinking like krill, drilling for ancestral root nurture, a suture in time, calling out the crime of the rind chewing machine. I lean into your island rhyme of spine climbing laughter, your truth of gristle gnawing on the beauty of hot burnt sky through your struggle and hustle, nostrils shy but breathing. I know you are cleaving to a mother kernel of rice plant bristle, clear on its rustle in the sea breeze of ghosting shuffles, and I love your crystalline mind held in hand with a lone, gentle heart on loan to a man, finding home in the land that is your breast, your caress, even across the girth of waters that bless this dream with the only life ever shown that lets me groan with gladness and drown with madness at having found such a nook of happiness to hide in when the end comes. You are the crook of tree whose branch I will never cease hugging even as the final flood rises. You, the only spice I would sail west to taste, conquistador in reverse, conquered now by the dawn of the east, your face. Even if it should mean I must now learn how to make adobo. All right, and one other in honor of Ron, who introduced me to James Carter back in the day. This is from 2000, jazz musician extraordinaire here in Detroit. So it's called Under James Carter's Hat. Big-butted bulb of brass blow, the ecstasy shine of bitter, shaving new skin colors from a single note, shearing off bastard universes destined to birth swimming tigers. Is that a city lurking in your horn hollow? I see your hidden purple matrix, outlaw tongue of electric mania spit. I got a police siren in my ear, shrieking broken laws of sepulchre. Dog drool wet like a sudden flood of nature, washing Wall Street into the Atlantic. Kamikaze come shivering presidents into pirouetting headstands like a Camp David breakdance, or lips on a Barack head, ozone closures of soft Texan nights like a sonic texture of warm cicadas, all sentient beings in Kama Sutra postures of release, hot parades of honking heads, squeezing infinity into a body, stutter, stomp, strut up and down, 194 flying spines, pop, wee wham hurt in my head, heaven like hell, like a dissonant harmony, big as a war, bad as a black whale, mad as a techno-electrified high-frequency hornet looking for an enemy. Man, you got to slow the fizz. You got to fix the cracker. My head will become somebody's equator. Your horn hole disgorging slow floating Jupiters. Your sucking lip lice from Buddha's bone, still buried in India. They come like cowboys riding molecules, obeying thermonuclear laws of insight, looking like the relatives of Einstein, looking like my eyeball in the casket when the worms get done and start dancing. I'm looking out from a wiggling future of warm, blind gratitude. I live inside a titillating breakfast. I am grilled meat begging the tooth of woman. I'm broken down like Adam and Eve inside the hunger of God. I'm the halo of the head of the devil, the howl of rib, the prowl of rooster, the crank of handle on the well of Jacob, the clay of tortoise, the eye of fish, the mob under contract, the knob of thrill on the chest of virgin, the gyrating hip of absolute dinner, the wind of articulate voids of quantum orange, the backlash of Masonic triangle, the whip of blue lost, the wide open brain of steaming ice, palpitating pyramids, levitating platitudes, breathing sewers into the stink of nirvana like a curled idea incarcerated under the hat of James Carter. This is the golden scream of rebirth.
Thank you, Jim, for the golden scream and how it echoes as part of all the voices tonight. We have some links that are put in the chat related to the Ron Allen project for everyone to check out. And the last person to put a link in the project in the chat is the next person for the open mic. So Ruby Woods, would you please step forward and bless the microphone?
Okay. I'm gonna stand up because I can hardly see this. I had my sister email it to me. This year, well, just recently, my second oldest brother passed, and it was a long journey to his passing. It's been about 10 years, right about the same time that he began that health challenge. My youngest and second youngest sister had a big rift, a big blowout. And the youngest sister said, okay, I think I have to take a break. And it literally has been about 10 years since I had seen my youngest sister. There had been some minimal contact, and more recently in the last year, she was joining the chats. And then when it was time to travel for the funeral, I ended up traveling with her. She picked me up and got me to the airport, and it was like there had been no time in between. But probably about 3 years into that descent and that rift among the sisters, I sent this out one Mother's Day. I'm not sure what year it was, but maybe it was about 7 years ago. And that second youngest sister sent it to remind us that I sent this before. So I'm going to see if I can read it. It's a little bit difficult in the light. My favorite hymn, and this is to my 4 sisters for Mother's Day. My favorite hymn from the Unitarian Universalist Songbook begins with 3 questions. Where do we come from? Who are we? Where are we going? This Mother's Day, I want to try to answer these questions. First, we come from our mother Anita, daughter of Lucy, daughter of Eliza. No human being comes into the world without a mother. I give thanks for my life every day. Second, we are the daughters of Anita, extending back through Lucy to Eliza and stretching forth into Amber and Nadja. A brief lineage for sure, but it's ours, precisely and uniquely ours. The only true possession in this life is one's personal biography. We are inextricably bound together, and that is the truth. We are blessed to have each other. Third, we are going along our separate tracks, diverging rather than converging in these latter years of our lives. Miles apart, literally and spiritually, precious time is passing. For this I am sad. I call upon Granny and Big Mama and Mama to gather and mend the fragments and piece together a curious and magical quilt. A blanket of patches on the surface like windows into the moments of our lives, leaving the hard and sad times underneath, tacked down with colorful yarn. Expansive and voluminous, there will be laughter and secrets and space for elbows and hugs. On the edges, there will be forgiveness. That's it.
Thank you so much, Ruby. Thank you so much. This is a family day with a lot going on, but it is emotion today. It is emotion today. We have one more open mic, one more person. Let me make sure I get it right. One more person for the open mic today. Please welcome, please join us. Love Infinite.
Hello, thank you for the space. Well, I just want to say thank you to Leslie for being this, sharing the amazing stories and setting the tone for me. I came in during her speaking, so I'm gonna do 3 poems. This first one is called Don't Give Up. Don't give up, but I want to. Don't give up. I don't want to not give up. My throat hurts. I'm sleepy. I'm tired of going to work, tired of clocking in. I want poetry to pay. Why must I be patient and why must I wait and plan? I'm tired of plans and tired of planning and tired of strategizing and tired of marketing and sick of not knowing in advance how I will buy my next toothbrush or how I will get to work or get home and when my life will be stable. Will it ever be stable? Will I? I guess I'll never know unless I don't give up. I guess I'll never know until I see it through. Tears. This next poem is called Transmutation. Some days when the pain overflows over the toilet and onto the floor like putrid water, it feels like the disaster will never go away. I have addressed what I can and still cannot find peace. I know my trauma and even my triggers, but when do I find the release? The final release that says, you passed, this is over. Where have I failed? What am I missing? What haven't I learned? Am I moving too fast again? Why can't I move on? Why, God, are you holding me here in this desert to dry? You keep telling me I am you, that I can have anything, that I am worthy and deserving, that I must unlearn the hopelessness they fed me? What about everything I am trying to forget? Do you insist on me remembering? Everything, everything, everything echoes and tortures me. I have nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. The next time the pain comes, I let it pour. I let it overflow. I let it be the disaster it wants to be. And then I pick up my putrid pieces and I call them pretty. My last poem is called Your Government Should Be Planting Trees, or Su Gobierno Debería Plantar Árboles. It is Spanglish. Árboles que caen. ¿Quién será el pastor? Leading us back into love's waiting branches. ¿Quién abrazará el árbol? Who will be brave enough to risk examinations of insanity? ¿Quién luchará por el planeta? Who will save the trees, knowing all the time they are really saving themselves? ¿Quién todavía cree en las bendiciones del aliento? ¿Se asegurará la humanidad de que el oxígeno no se extinga? Quedará naturaleza. But will there be humans to enjoy her anymore? Thank you for the space. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Love Infinite. That's definitely, from what I understand about Ron Allen, part of the spirit of Ron Allen is how creativity can help us to hold on and help us to transmute from one thing to another. So it's beautiful to see everybody who came through in the open mic. Love Infinite put some links in the comment as well. At this point, we want to see if people, we have about 10 minutes, have any questions, comments for Leslie, for our featured poet. Do people for our featured poet, one of my new favorite poets, does anyone have any comments, any questions that they would like to ask? We have about 10 minutes. We'll just open it up for a communal conversation.
Hey, Leslie, it's Kim Hunter. Thanks for your reading. And I remember when you came out with Urban Junk Star a little bit ago, and I was really amazed by it. I just want to say thank you. Thank you to all the readers, really. Thank you very much. Appreciate everybody tonight. That's all I have to say.
Dig it. Thank you, Kim. I'm looking forward to your reading too.
Hey, Leslie. That was great. Great reading. Love to hear your voice again.
Is that you, Dennis?
Yeah, it is indeed. All the readers were great tonight. It was just wonderful. But
I enjoyed being a part of this.
yeah,
Thank
you were terrific. It was wonderful.
Bless you. Thank you. I was scared. I was like, oh, I don't have a bunch of brand new stuff. Or look, I'm one of those people who still, I have more committed in handwriting in different notebooks and places than I actually have, typed up and stuff. So yeah, all right. Who's laughing?
I'm laughing. I'm the same way. I'm the same way. If I want to finish a poem, I got to go through 3 different notebooks.
Okay.
to find the words. And a couple of napkins too.
Oh,
know
I
how
feel
it
you, brother. I do. I
That's
do
right.
indeed. And I have, in my mind, when I was first thinking about this reading, I was just gonna take you all on the nostalgic trip of life, like, because I have like the best, or I feel like I have the best. I didn't know I was accumulating it, but I have the best Detroit literary archive from especially like the 80s and the 90s. I got a lot of stuff, okay? And yeah, and I was just gonna bust out all kind of stuff, all kind of things. And but anyway, I also moved, and I didn't even have some of these things are still packed up.
Mhm.
So I was like, oh man, what am I gonna do? And my laptop crashed, people. So I was like, what am I supposed to do now? And then I was like, oh, let's see. I do have a little USB drive somewhere. Let's see what's on it. Lord, please let there be something I can read. Yeah.
Well, it made for a beautiful compliment, with this whole theme of family and remembrance.
Yeah.
Really was very strong tonight, as someone else pointed out.
Yes, indeed. Really. I mean, we talked about sleep. We talked about pets. We talked about family members, friends, strangers. The Horizons and Poetry family is pretty, I mean, that could be a whole other book.
The
Yeah.
food got me, Owolabi, when you were talking about the food. I was like, okay,
I know he listed everything, right?
he knows my family.
But you forgot caramel cake.
Uh-oh.
You forgot caramel cake. Maybe y'all don't do caramel cake.
I don't know if we do caramel cake.
Okay, well, you had a lot of other cakes though, so I guess the caramel cake couldn't even fit on the table.
Yeah, I can't even imagine caramel cake, so I don't think. Yeah, I got to taste that.
my father made them from scratch, 3-layer, no recipe. I tried to get the recipe. I just would try to watch him, but anyway, I haven't had the nerve to give it a try since he left. But a part of me feels like I should just give it a try because everybody misses his cakes, and I remember one time I asked him, like, if he would describe some recipes, and he just looked at me like, what are you talking about? Like, because he just did, like you just eyeball things. You just toss this in, and he loves some butter. I did know the one thing is that the pound of butter had to sit on the counter overnight. But yeah, he believed in a good stick of butter. Thanksgiving dinner, he'd be walking around with a knife and a stick of butter, touching up all the dishes. Oh, a little butter on the mac and cheese, a little butter on the yams. I was like, let me move my purse before
Put some butter on your
before some butter found. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, one quick
And I
question
really
before
wanted to read something. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, you go.
I know I did. Well, the only thing I was going to say is that I really had wanted to read from Ron's book, The Unborn Muse of Shadows, because I really like that one. But anyway, another time, yeah.
Just one quick personal question before I have to hop off because I got some refrigerator issues I got to deal with. That's a long story. But where in Alabama are your people from?
Well, my dad was born in Lowndes County. And then after that accident, they moved to Prattville, which is kind of close to Montgomery, Alabama. I also have family in Tuskegee and Birmingham. Are you
Yeah,
Alabamese too?
my
That's
my
what Farouk
father's
called it, Alabamese. If you're
my father's people are from Fairfield.
okay, I'll have to look on a map.
It's right next to Birmingham. It
Okay.
was it was where black people were allowed to live near Birmingham.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Leslie,
All right.
thank you for reading the Alabama poem and the Cottonfield poem.
Oh, the Cottonfield.
Cottonfield poem. This is Aneb.
Hi, Aneb. How are you? Good to
Always.
see you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, well, I'm glad you all like it too, because there's times I'm like, am I supposed to do something else with this? But yeah. Yeah. It had a different title before it was Field Section. I think it was just simply saving us from the cotton field or something like that. Who knows?
It's a blessing that you have that story. My family didn't share stories in that way. You know, not big talkers, but just lots of heart. You know, I bonded early with my grandfather because I didn't sleep as an infant, and my mother would take me to granddaddy, and I didn't until like approaching 70 look back and realize that is why Granny used to walk me, because I would be at Granddaddy's house overnight, and then Granny would walk me around just around the corner back home. And my other siblings were like, "You were Granny's favorite," and I'm thinking, no, she was just getting me back to the house. That's so, you know, we all have, like, I truly do believe the only thing you own in this life is your biography, you know, and it's precious, it's sacred, it's, you know, and as much as you can listen and glean, all the better. But then their life is full of holes. it's it's a
It
tapestry.
really is.
It's an upside down
Upside down tapestry.
mosaic history. Yes.
Ain't it though? It really is. It's an upside down tapestry mosaic history. Yeah. Yeah. We have there's lots of holes too. That's why I try to, you know, and sometimes I'll share a story with my family and they'll be like, "You remember that? Wow." You know, and then other times somebody will chime in. That's what I'm grateful, you know, for my cousins or somebody that they'll chime in with something else, you know, some more details or something something that I didn't know or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. My mother
Because
oh, go ahead. I don't
no,
know.
your
Oh,
mother always what?
she always said that she was from Little Rock, Arkansas, but they were from some place called Flag Pond. And when I looked it up on the map, it's actually just swamp country. So I told my children, I said, "You come from swamp people."
Dig it.
So you know you're a survivor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you should write that legend. I wish I could see more of you on my phone screen, but I'm glad to have some device where I can ain't technology wonderful?
Oh, you can't see all of the cells?
Mm-mm.
No.
But
Okay.
yeah. Thanks for not asking any hard questions.
Tell us
We're
all
all-
your secrets. Come on.
Yeah. We're always kind to our own.
Members
So-
of
So at this point, we want to thank everybody for coming out. We do want to encourage you to join our Facebook page. It's the Ron Allen Project public page. We also have a platform, or we're on the Instagram platform it's at the Ron Allen Project. And you can stay up to date and keep in touch with us and with the details for the program coming up at the end, coming up next month. You can also find information, much more information about Ron Allen in particular at the website www.ronallenproject.org, which Ruby had posted as well in the chat. You can also visit our Horizons in Poetry YouTube page to review all of the events from last year and this year, and access playlists of the vintage Horizons in Poetry. And there's also some video of Ron Allen in Los Angeles on that page as well.
And you got a chance to briefly meet him at the end of the night. Our next feature, our last event for the year, is Monday, October 30th. And Kim D. Hunter will be the feature. He's the author of the fiction collection, The Official Report on Human Activity from Wayne State Press, a winner of the 2018 Indies Silver Award for Short Stories and a Kresge Literary Arts Fellowship in 2012. For 13 years, he co-directed the Woodward Line Poetry Series, which earned a Knight's Art Challenge in 2013. Many poems which appear in publications such as Black Renaissance Noir, What I Say, Innovative Poetry by Black Writers in America, and elsewhere. He's also published, in addition to his stories, 2 collections of poetry, Edge of the Time Zone and Born on Slow Knives. And again, that date is Monday, October 30th, which will be the last reading for this year.
All right. Well, thank you all again for joining us and participating this evening. Some new faces and some new voices. It's wonderful. Remember to view the chat for any of the links to our artists and co-hosts, as well as all of the Ron Allen Project sites. Please note that all of our Horizons in Poetry events run from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern and can be accessed by the same link each time. So we'll put it to use one more time in October. This event is made possible by the James S. and James L. Knight Foundation. I'm sorry, John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, and supported by the Hannan Center and the Kayrod Gallery in Detroit. Thank you all for coming out, and hope you all have a very good evening.
Time and space in the city, in the street funk on Mac, the smell of the junking junk of the human mind. Ground Zero television heroes, Bailout Cruise and Death in My Pen, flag waving thunder, Babylon slumber. The time and space city, working the money pimp computer slave. New mind stomp of circumstance and pomp, and death is video glass and corporate rap. Baggy head winning superstars on deep ribbing trips of ego. And time and space of the city crawls from my tongue like Friday night dressed in hero chic drag. As a chiseled beat of stolen sleep, conch fried sweet. In labor's price jail, in prison perpetrating schemes and doo-doo dreams of beauty. In time and space in Detroit is their mega mind. Backspace at ground zero. Greyhound escapes. And fake shake depth and illusory wealth. And the HMO is dope. Smoke. Taupe. Factory hope. Stereo blues in Center City. And the wicked are celebrated. Resuscitated shells watch we die in the living lifetime. A space change of funky, junky shifts. And we blow rips of walls and winners and movie renters. For miles in the sky and the sweet flag, goodbye. And we become the gun of time and space. And neon freaks in the deep fix of channel hip. We are again exploded and eroded, youth decay. And money won't speak, and time won't creep. We fall into the deep sleep of yes. An affirmation of impotent masturbation. Looking for the good in can rally time. And we space in the limits of man. And think of cesspool Sundays. We only see the paper heads, paper worlds, the DNA. The space won't speak and time won't creep. And we scream at the glitter of time. Paraded as life. Real as asphalt. Real as industry. Real as death. Two-legged money machine and the speak of doom. Pimped out cartoon war zones between the mind of God and plastic knives. And the rope genius of man. Spitting techno plans. The secret ritual futures of slave work and flesh. And the hype of sex. And the hype of speed, proto-cerebral greed. And the time and space in Spirit City is in the gate of the mouth and hustled bouts. And her head is only a rack for skin. City Hall Mall, only a hat of the freed to see seeds of the common mind. And penny witches of cool. And master fronts of liquid games in the street of color. And dreams that break all speed rhythms of perpetuated nows. And time is the devil and space is never level. As the media limits the real. Sugar-coated pills of glitter and money won't speak. And time won't creep. Insane boogie brain, lame drain of blood on channel hip. The pimp of nasty trips of time and space in the city.